Hello and welcome back to Smash Hit Sports. We are headed into Rivalry Week, one of the best weekends of college football the entire year. We have a recap of last week where we have Michigan kind of fizzling out. We have Jordan Travis's injury, which sucked. We have Auburn losing one of the worst games maybe ever. All of that. We're going to do a college football rivalry draft, which is about to be lit. And we got a new segment alert. So we'll be debuting a new segment. Check that out. But before we get started, do us a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, all that shit. It is the best way to support the program. Nick, let's start out. Somber note. Jordan Travis's injury was fucking brutal.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see it live. And I texted in my group chat. I was like, "Don't look now," but Florida State's down 13-0 Northern Alabama.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And they were like, "Oh, did you not see?" And I looked it up and almost threw up. It was so gruesome. And then I texted you. I don't remember if I said like don't watch or like if you haven't watched, maybe don't. Or like
you very specifically said don't watch it, which
like I was
obviously I Googled it immediately.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what I did as well. But it was, not like the type of injury. It's like it felt like Kevin Ware, where it's like you don't want to think about that. You don't want to look at it after you see it once. It's just like that's been awful. Get that out of my brain. So prayers up to Jordan Travis. I've been a hater this year. I've been a Florida State hater, a Travis hater, and like I got to throw that out the window. Like at this point, I think it'd be an incredible story for Florida State to finish 13-0. Win the ACC with a backup quarterback. Like it's weird, but I kind of find myself. It turned my opinion a little bit, at least for this year, that I wouldn't be upset if they succeeded further on down the season.
Yep, I don't disagree. Florida State, I mean, they were playing outstanding ball, and the Jordan Travis injury, it sucks. It reminded me of the Dak Prescott injury a couple years ago where he had that.
It just went sideways, yeah.
Yep. But
this was Travis's whole leg.
Yeah.
Like, that's what doesn't make sense, because an ankle, it's like, it's fucked up, but the ankle's the ankle. Like, weird shit happens. The knee, the ACL's a terrible injury, but you never see anything like that. His leg was just boom, bang. It was an L.
Yep. Tibia fibia compound fractured. Pretty tough.
I also saw like the ticker at the bottom of like Sports Center and stuff today was like Jordan Travis confirms that he's out for the season, as if it's news. Right?
Yeah, it's like
we were waiting for him to confirm it because we were like, "Whoa, maybe he's going to play." That did not need to be news. Obvious from the jump. Of course, he's out for the season.
Yep. So long term, this should, and I understand why people are going to say, "Well, without Jordan Travis, I don't want to see Florida State in the college football playoff." I get that. The committee should not allow this to taint their opinion on Florida State. Now, if Florida State loses one of the next two games, entirely possible. At Florida's a tough matchup. However, they won't have Graham Mertz. He's already been ruled out for that game. And then Louisville for the ACC championship is not going to be an easy game by any means. However, if Florida State wins out and they go undefeated, they absolutely should make the college football playoff. And I forget what was it, 2014 Ohio State is the absolute perfect example of you cannot let injuries decide how you rule on a team. Now, if it comes to the point where go ahead.
I'm pretty sure Ohio State wasn't ranked in the top 4 all season long that year.
Mm-hmm.
And then JT Barrett got hurt.
Yes.
I guess I think Braxton Miller was probably QB1. And he got hurt early on. Then Barrett gets hurt. And the committee had literally did it perfectly. They didn't have Ohio State ranked all year. And then they see Cardale Jones can do incredible things. They beat Wisconsin like 56-0 that year in the Big Ten championship game, and absolutely deserve to be in, the Final Four. So, yeah.
Yep. If they go undefeated, I think they should be in. That being said, let's move on to another team in the top 5. Washington winning that game. I don't want to say it was played in a hurricane, but it certainly was not ideal. playing conditions in Corvallis, Washington won a tough battle. Like that was a good win. There's no such thing as an ugly win against a top 10 team. And that's what Oregon State was. Like they were a top 10 team. Washington got a good win. Like that's a good win. Michael Penix wasn't great in the second half, but hey, he didn't need to be.
Listen, this is my thing with Washington. It's like, I don't like, some people are judging them, a 2-point win on the road against a Oregon State team that was ranked 10th in the country. And, maybe they've been struggling a little bit, Washington, that is. So some people are like, well, Florida State deserves to be number 4 still over Washington. But Florida State has struggled in weird spots throughout the season as well. Yeah. Like they struggled against Boston College, could have lost that game. You pick your poison. I'm playing it on some other games, but I know that if you're listening, you know that Florida State has struggled a little bit. And like a win is a win. We can't judge especially a win in Corvallis.
Yeah.
In those conditions, number 10 overall team. If anything, that, in my opinion, has to be enough to get them to 4th in the college football playoff rankings. Which, did those come out? No, that's tomorrow.
Yep, that's tomorrow. Which by the time you're listening to this, they've already come out and we might look like idiots, but hey, who knows? Yeah. That being said, Washington right now in the AP poll has wins over the number 6 team in Oregon, the number 15 team in Oregon State, the number 16 team in Arizona. Like it's about as good a resume as anybody has, to be very honest. Like those are some really good wins. So they deserve to be in the top 4. At the end of the day, it's all going to play itself out. We still have 2 very important weeks. Well, 1 week of the regular season, and then, conference championship week. But this week, there's so much on the line. I'm excited to talk about it. But you want to talk about dog shit. Auburn has been, they started the season out looking pretty decent under Hugh Freeze. The regression has been awful. And I will say this, New Mexico State has played a very good year this year. Like they've been pretty solid all year. They've certainly been, they've exceeded my expectations. Auburn just paid $1.85 million to get their ass beat. Yeah. Beat, dude. What a terrible game.
Yeah, they got crushed. And like my comparison is always the Georgia Southern Florida game from like 2013, where Georgia Southern had 0 completed passes. All they did was run. They also missed 3 extra points. And that's the game where the 2 Florida players were blocking each other.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? I think that was the Georgia Southern game, or at least that was the season. Florida was just pitiful that year. But that has always been like, is it worse than that? Oftentimes it's not, but I think in this case, losing as bad as Auburn did, it's probably worse, especially because they paid so much more than normal, it feels like.
Yeah, that was like Alabama didn't pay. They paid Chattanooga like half of that. Texas A&M,
it was like a third of that, I think. It was like 600,000 to 1.8 mil.
That's insane.
It's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, and Auburn, I think, was a 21-point favorite going into the game, and they lost by 21. So like a 42-point swing on the spread. This game was never close. Like, it was an ass beating. It was brutal. Hugh Freeze.
New Mexico State lost to UMass.
Yeah.
And like a UMass team that lost 63-0 to Penn State. Like that just basically says Auburn is just not even close to being back quite yet.
I think, obviously we're in year 1, but the Hugh Freeze experiment has not started the way Auburn
started
thinks.
Great. They are bowl bound, so
yeah. No.
I guess props to them. Maybe they were just like, oh, we don't care. We made a bowl, blah blah blah. I don't know.
Fair. That is better than some teams that we will talk about. Yeah, brutal. Also, Chattanooga is like 0-56 in their last 56 games against the SEC. Okay. I saw somebody was like, dude, Alabama's like, Chattanooga's not a bad team. Like Alabama, like this is no cupcake game. I was like, the fuck do you mean, dude? They haven't beat an SEC team since the Korean War. Like,
yeah, since like the 1960s. I thought you were going to say 0-56 in the last 56 games, and then I was just going to freak out. How is that not talked about more? But that's still crazy. I did not see that stat, so that's nuts.
Yep.
But But yeah, so bad job, Auburn. You're in the awkward silence segment that we're going to skip over this week.
Yeah.
But Auburn, you would have been in that segment. Just know that.
Looking at
if you're an Auburn fan.
Looking at the Week 12 recap, we have two things. Actually, no, I lied. We have one positive thing, and that's the good Washington win. Everything else on this list is negative. There's not a lot of positive that came from this weekend.
We'll get to positives in the props too.
Yeah, that's true. That's what props 2 is for.
There's a lot of things that happened that need to be talked about that weren't great. It just so happened to be this past week.
Facts. We got to get the vibes up.
I mean, and you could argue that, this isn't necessarily a negative. Michigan struggled against Maryland. Yeah. Although I do think that they had the game under control the entire time. It was closer than a lot of people expected / wanted it to be, whatever you want to say. I had Maryland spread, so I feel really good about that, especially coming from someone who was high on Maryland this year.
You were a truther.
I was a truther. Didn't really work out, but against Michigan, I was like, okay, 19-point spread. Like, I'm just going to sprinkle on that again because, go Terps. They need it. Their basketball team stinks, so give them something. And, yeah, they put up a really good fight. You could argue Michigan was just sleepwalking the entire game. It's the biggest look-ahead game in the college football season this year.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Right? Like, you got the game the next week, and you're playing – it's not like Ohio State playing Minnesota. You're playing Maryland on the road, tougher environment.
How concerned are you with the fact that in the last 2 weeks, J.J. McCarthy is – like last week, he was 12 for 23, 141 yards, 52% completion percentage, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Against Penn State, 7 for 8 for 60 yards, no touchdowns. How worried are you about J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah, it's tough because I do think that Michigan just doesn't have – like, if you look at other quarterbacks in college football, you can name 2 or 3 of their wide receivers off the top of your dome, even if you're a casual fan.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Michigan, there's Roman Wilson, who isn't even that great.
He's pretty good. And then he's pretty fucking good.
He's pretty good. I honestly don't think he's like. I think he's like a 5th, 6th round pick kind of guy. Compared to like Washington, who has Odunze, Jalen Polk, and so on and so forth. But I can't name any other Michigan wide receiver. Maybe it's just because I haven't really been watching the Michigan games because they've played such a cupcake schedule all year. But it's also a little bit because Harbaugh's gone, and the stat is that like they were a run-heavy team with Harbaugh, but now without Harbaugh, they've ran 75% of their plays, which is like the numbers of a triple option.
Yeah,
like that doesn't.
That's like, a Navy stat.
Saying like we don't. That's a Navy. That's a Georgia Tech stat. And it's just saying, like, okay, you either don't trust JJ or Jim Harbaugh was kind of the offensive mind play caller, and they're just like, we don't want to risk anything. Let's just run. So I think I'm not going to be worried unless this trend continues when Harbaugh's back.
Yep. Moving on to America's team, America's sweetheart, not Michigan. Because Jim Harbaugh saying that Michigan is America's team is the dumbest thing I've ever heard because nobody loves a cheater.
Yeah.
JMU. Unfortunately, College Game Day, which don't know if you watched College Game Day, it was electric. They had a record crowd. That stadium holds 25,000 people. There were 26,000 at College Game Day. I mean, just absolutely unbelievable. They had PFT as the guest picker. He did did outstanding, just ripping one-liners.
Yeah.
But brutal.
He's so
that overtime loss, like it was an outstanding game. They had that play on 4th and 18, and they just couldn't get the job done.
It's a shame. I couldn't. It wasn't on. It wasn't nationally televised, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Like
2:00 kickoff, weird time.
I mean, yeah, I think it was like ESPN Plus or something. You had to watch it on. So I didn't end up watching it. I was just tracking it. I also had, again, like 20 to 30 people that I knew that were there. A lot of them were camped out like Friday night for game.
That's
day.
awesome.
Like it's amazing. Like they cared so much. And again, that's why I love that they picked JMU to go to, because you got to give these teams that just aren't used to having this spotlight. give him the spotlight, and the energy is going to be unmatched, because college football, the energy is unmatched always. But if you just go to Tuscaloosa, every week, you're probably going to have like 1,000 people show up because they're like, I don't really feel like waking up. I've done it before.
Exactly. Yep. This is like, they're going to the game again next week. Fun fact, this is the third straight year that they've gone to the game the last week of the season. Like that's great. But when they do it every year, it's like, okay, cool. Like this is why going to these smaller schools for college game day is fucking awesome. I loved it.
No, I don't think there's there isn't like another game that I think they should have gone to this week.
True.
And I mean, we'll get into the slate later. So no judgment.
I mean, 2-3 is,
2-3, you kind of got to go to that. Everyone, like, that's going to be maybe the most watched game of the season. Probably will be. So, yeah, we'll get to that later. But definitely sad for JMU, especially after such an electric, morning / afternoon for all the fans and just to have your season crushed like that. So.
Yep. Let's talk some USC. Is Lincoln Riley good at coaching football? Do we think he is?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is a good question. I don't know. Maybe Lincoln Riley was the problem. Maybe not Alex Grinch. Maybe Alex Grinch should have been promoted to coach. Probably not. But it really just feels like they quit the season. Like, especially this last year. They did not look like they tried at all against UCLA. It sucks because both of us picked USC in our game picks. And, it was dead immediately. You could just tell the energy was not there, even for, like, a home game. It was just stupid. I actually don't know if it was at home or not. But
no, it was at UCLA.
It was at UCLA still. It was probably a lot of, UCLA and USC fans went. Olivia Rodrigo was there. Disappointed in front of Liv Rod. Unbelievable. I have no way. Like, there's no part of me that can just say Lincoln Riley's a bad coach because, like, he's coached so many Heisman or so many quarterbacks to the Heisman. He's been to the playoff a couple times. So many coaches have never done that. But it is kind of a mystery. Why are they 7-5? Why are they 7-7 in their last 14 games? I don't know.
And like Caleb Williams is now like he's done. He's played his last snaps for USC. There's no way he's going to play in a bowl. Like it's.
Oh, and they don't have a
game they don't have a game this week. They're done. That was a 12-game season, right? So
no, that's right.
They're
they played
done and over with, and like they tried to schedule this so that like they had a bye before their conference championship game, and shit. Just a brutal end of the season. Like Caleb Williams, I understanding not wanting to speak to the media, like your last game, losing like that is tough. He'll have plenty of time to speak to the media this offseason during draft prep, pro day, like obviously the combine. I know a lot of people have been like, oh, this is a terrible look. It's a terrible look. It's a terrible look. And I kind of agree. If this was 10 years ago, I would say, yeah, that's fine. He didn't want to talk to the media. I get it. He's a college kid, whatever. I watched 37 fucking Dr. Pepper commercials with Caleb Williams in it on Saturday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he seems fine in front of the camera.
If you're going to be making millions of dollars in ad spend, like part of that comes to you have to answer the fucking questions. And I don't like
right.
There will be teams that do not have him as the number one quarterback on their board. Ultimately, it won't matter. He's going to be taken first overall. He's going to be taken first overall. But there are teams that like they're not taking him first.
Yeah, it's tough because like obviously, he has the combine, he has the pro days, all these things, workouts, and surely he's the best quarterback prospect in the draft. So there's no way, in my opinion, there's no way teams are like, I'd rather have Drake May than Caleb Williams. But at the end of it, but maybe right now, they would. But I mean, again, it's weird. Like, and people keep saying like, oh, well, he's just a kid. He's 22 years old. I'm 23, right? Like we're pretty much the same age. He like the excuse can't be like, oh, he's just this young kid who's sad that his season went to shit. Like, I don't know. I feel like by 22 years old, you have to suck it up. You know, just deal with it. Face the onslaught that you kind of have coming. Although he played really well.
Yeah,
So, at least,
I mean,
in the first half.
it wasn't like he didn't play his best game. He's not the reason they lost that football game. But
no, yeah, he had like 250 yards in the first half. Like Caleb Williams is still Caleb Williams. I do think he's also just getting there's so much pressure on him, and there's like a little more hate than normal. I think like with Trevor Lawrence, who was the last generational quarterback prospect, like locked to go number one. I don't think there was much hate towards Trevor Lawrence. Maybe some people were saying, oh, like Justin Fields, Ohio State beat Clemson. I'd rather take Justin Fields. But no one was like, fuck you, Trevor Lawrence. Some people are saying,
but the thing with Trevor Lawrence is like kept his mouth shut, like hey, thank God, thank everybody, like thank my teammates. That's just always it's what he did. It's the same. Like Jalen Hurts does the same thing, right? Jalen Hurts is the worst interview in the world. You interview him after a game, no matter what happens, his interview is exactly the same. We went out there, we gave a team effort. It was the offensive line, it was everybody around me, it was the defense stepping up. Our coaching staff did a great job to put us in the right spot. Like it's coach speak. They like. Don't get me wrong, that's incredible for being a good leader and being the right guy in the locker room. It's boring, but like that's why.
Yeah, I mean, it's PR.
Yeah, it's why more people are talking about
right
Caleb Williams than it, because his PR has been not all of it has been bad. Like he's also done some phenomenal things as well, right? Like it comes with it. It comes with the territory. If you're going to be on camera, people are going to talk about you. Just is what it is.
Right.
But all right, let's get into the props too. We got a couple of phenomenal props too this weekend. But we got to start. We've been doing the props to the best group of 5 teams that have been remaining undefeated. JMU, you're no longer on the list. I love you, but it's over. So props to Liberty for moving on to 11-0. The Flames, you got one more week. Let's keep it moving. We're all cheering for you. I like their head coach a lot. So.
I mean, how great is that for Liberty? Like, they were really good last year with Hugh Freeze. And then I think Hugh Freeze just kind of, like, said to the team before the season was over, he was like, I'm going to leave, just FYI. Oh, and the team was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So they kind of quit on the season. Going into this season, people are like, well, we don't know what Liberty's going to be. They had some talent turnover. We have no idea who the new head coach is. And now they're 11-0, probably going to go 12-0. In my opinion, they're who I want to play in a New Year's Six Bowl if a group of 5 team is going to do it. I mean, if they go 12-0, like this is my thing is, undefeated teams, I don't really care about your strength of schedule as much as I would like 1-2 loss teams, because like a Toledo loss to Illinois, right? It's like, okay, they lost to a Power 5 team. I would have loved to see Liberty play Illinois because I think Liberty could beat Illinois. I really do. Illinois is not good.
I like Tulane as a one-loss team. Their only loss, a 7-point loss to Ole Miss, in which Tulane's starting quarterback was out for that game.
Yeah, and that's fair as well, but they lost.
Yeah, that's fair.
Liberty didn't. And I would not be mad at all if it was Tulane. I like that Tulane team. I like Michael Pratt a lot. It'd be really fun. They beat USC last year. But I just think it'd be awesome to see Liberty do it. And I mean, speaking of Toledo, we'll go into a props to Toledo because they were down to Bowling Green. They were down.
It was like 28-10 at halftime. I don't know if those two teams, Battle of I-75, they hate each other. They hate each other. That was
Toledo has their like rocket statue in their stadium or on campus is pointed to land right at the Bowling Green 50-yard line. That is Rivalry 101. Electric. I wish I watched this game. I don't know what I was doing.
It was outstanding. It's Tuesday night action.
I know. It's
phenomenal game.
I was just doing something. But yeah, again, that's where like the MAC frustrates me because it's like I'll forget, that there's a game I really want to watch. And again, Toledo Bowling Green, I probably would have assumed Toledo was going to win that game kind of handedly. But they were down 28-10. I think they were down 31-10 at a point. and then scored 22 unanswered, beat Bowling Green pretty much at the buzzer, 32-31. They're still alive to play in that NY6 Bowl because, again, they do have that one loss, and it's to a Power 5 team.
Yep.
So, yeah, props to Toledo.
Yeah, absolute props to Toledo. Next, props to the top 10. The top 10 showed out. They played big boy football, and all of them won this weekend. So we had a chance for potential chaos. Like Iowa State had a chance, like Oregon State had a chance, like Maryland had a chance. All these teams had a chance, and they just put them away. Like Oregon, it seems like Oregon loses the second to last game every year to a team they probably shouldn't. Bo Nix just went out, scored 6 touchdowns in the first half. Like, never a doubt. So
yeah,
we love the chaos, but like.
I know. I mean, you and I last episode were talking about how, like, we haven't seen that much chaos this season. Fun fact, actually, right now we're on pace for the lowest amount of teams to be ranked in the AP Top 25.
Wow.
So, like, unique teams. Right now, there's been 42 unique teams ranked. Normally, it's like 50 to 55-ish. Obviously, with only a couple more AP polls left, that's just not going to happen. So, yeah, not a lot of chaos this year. We thought maybe this last week could have provided that, and it didn't. The only chaos really was Auburn losing to New Mexico State. That was incredibly unexpected. There were a lot of really good games, but the top 10, as far as the AP poll goes, they all won.
Yep.
So.
Next, I was gonna say, you do the next props too. I just did that one, dude. Come on.
Well, and I want to do the bonus props to FSU because they navigated the Jordan Travis so well.
Yeah.
Because they were already losing. When it happened, and it's just like down 13-0, such an emotional moment. That's your 6-year senior, your leader, kind of the soul of your team, and to witness the teams met at the middle of the field. It felt like this Damar Hamlin situation. And then they come back and trounce Northern Alabama, which to do just minutes after this tragic injury is very impressive to me. So bonus props to FSU.
Yep.
And then also props to Northwestern because they're bowl bound, which is awesome. Great for Northwestern.
And then we talked too last week that their head coach should be hired as the full time. And then literally as soon as we were done recording the podcast, they hired him to be their full-time guy. So just a huge dub for Northwestern all around. Props to Arizona. Jed Fish. Just outstanding. Beating a good Utah team at home. That was a statement win. Jed Fish. Unfortunately, he's probably going to get a lot of calls from Texas A&M and maybe Mississippi State, but goddamn. He's done what he's done in 2 years at Arizona has been outstanding. That they have a shot to play for the Pac-12 championship, and that's just crazy.
Which is nuts. I can definitely see. First of all, I can definitely see Jed Fish leaving. It would make complete sense to me. Sadly, but also, Arizona is playing some of the best football in the country right now, and they were playing pretty well earlier. But I think if you replay that Mississippi State game, you replay that USC game, I think they win both of those. They might even beat Washington for all we know. This Arizona team is right now playing almost a top 4 team, and it's a shame they have 3 losses, but it'd be awesome if they somehow got into the Pac-12 championship game. They just need Oregon State to beat Oregon, and then if they, beat Washington and finish 10-3, and go into the bowl season.
Rose Bowl.
You gotta assume they would actually they would get the auto Rose Bowl bid, which would just be awesome. So I'm kind of rooting for that. Also, we call JMU America's team. Arizona is also America's team.
America's team on the West Coast.
Yeah, there are 2 of them. I will give props to Iowa because they did it again.
We're running the best bet back. We're doing this shit again.
Yeah. We have to. It's 26.5 this week.
It's so low.
Yeah. It's insane. They hit it again. That game was 2-0 for a little bit.
The most Iowa score ever.
Every time I would turn it on, I'd be like, oh, this is disgusting. but it's so funny at this point how predictable it is. Like, for certain that Iowa is not going to score 30 points. They can't do it. And the fact is, Kirk Ferentz and the 25 point per game rule, where's he stand on that? He's probably averaging 15 points.
Yeah,
per
it's
game
awful.
Now.
It's so
yeah, he didn't even get close. And the thing is, Iowa's still 9-2, so you have to give him props.
Props to Sam Hartman and Notre Dame. Shout out my boys, the Irish. You put that he tied Baker Mayfield. He actually passed Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
So he has 132 passing touchdowns, which puts him at 4th overall in college football history. He has a chance against Stanford this weekend to pass. The number 3 overall is Graham Harrell, who was the quarterback of that Texas Tech team with Michael Crabtree under Mike Leach. And one of the all-time great college football quarterbacks. So Sam Hartman, a chance to make history. There's no shot that he gets to Kellen Moore. He would need 10 touchdowns against Stanford, which would be fucking crazy.
What if he went 5 against Stanford and 5 in the bowl? Does that count?
I don't know I would assume they count playoff and bowls or whatever. So
yeah, I would assume so as well. So
hey,
not impossible. Considering Stanford, you could put up 5 touchdowns against Stanford.
That would be crazy. The worst part,
and then just hope you play. If it's Notre Dame LSU in a bowl game, Sam Hartman could do it.
No doubt.
No doubt. Because LSU, that game would be 50 to 48. Yep. So
the thing that
don't count them out.
The thing that worries me, I'm a Notre Dame fan. Don't get me wrong, I love Notre Dame fans. We would claim him so quickly. We'd be like, "Yep, Notre Dame has a top 3 passing touchdown player of all time," and it's like, yeah. He played 5 seasons for Wake Forest and 1 for you, and you're going to call him your guy. But
yeah, but to be fair, I think a lot of casual college football fans would remember him as a Notre Dame. It's kind of the Russell Wilson thing.
Yep.
Where I remember Russell Wilson as a Wisconsin player.
Nobody knows that Joe Burrow played for Ohio State. You know what I mean? So
yeah, all of that. I mean, obviously Burrow didn't put up numbers. For Ohio State. But there are a couple players out there that it's that psychological effect. The last team you play for, it's going to be remembered. So I would respect it, if you claimed him, although it would be technically ridiculous. I'm going to give props, speaking of Stanford, I'll give props to 5-6 Cal. They gave field rush haters a massive middle finger.
This is so fucking
because they rushed the field after beating 3-8. This
is
Stanford.
so goddamn dumb.
That is so crazy to me, but I love it. It's just what? We're going to rush the field because, fuck you. And again, as a Clemson student or Clemson graduate, we rush the field every game, win or loss, but it's different. We're not, running, stampeding our way onto the field. Cal won this game against a tragic team, and they're clawing each other, trying to get on the field. Hilarious. And awesome in my eyes, so I have to give them props.
Yep, I'm going to let you rip this next one too, the last one.
Yeah, props to Cole Ballard, who is the Kansas third stringer, who honestly looked really, really good, which surprised the hell out of me because both Kansas State ended up winning, but both of us probably would have slammed the Kansas State spread.
That was my bet of the week. Kansas State minus
exactly.
10.
Yeah, and it did not hit, and that is because of Cole Ballard. He played well enough where I think it's now in the conversation that Jalen Daniels might transfer. He said he's coming back. He might transfer because Kansas has a guy sitting there who has proved that he can perform against a ranked team that well. Yeah, I gotta give him props.
Does that last name sound familiar to you at all?
No.
So,
maybe.
Cole Ballard is the son of Chris Ballard, who is the GM for the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, shout out Cole Ballard, Westfield, Indiana graduate. Here we go. Hoosiers, not just a basketball state. But yeah, shout out Cole Ballard. Hell of a game.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah, crazy, right? Football. Hey, kid knows ball. Kid knows ball.
Yeah, clearly.
All right, let's get into the crazy scenario segment. All right, the shit's about to go off the rails a little bit. All right, stay with us. All right, we're gonna put some numbers at you, some situations. All right, and all of this is plausible. This is all plausible. We got 1 week left in the season. This could all happen. All right. So, Nick, do you want to hypothesize who would be in the playoff in this situation, or what's the? Okay.
Yeah. What does the committee do in this scenario that is entirely possible and it's not even unlikely at this point? There is a decent chance that this actually happens. In this scenario, Texas beats Texas Tech, and then whoever they play in the Big 12 championship game, they win. They're 12-1 as the Big 12 champion with a win against Alabama and a loss against Oklahoma. Alabama would be 12-1. They beat Auburn, then they beat Georgia. They're a 12-1 SEC champ. Loss against Texas, and then obviously wins against Georgia and any other SEC team you care to name. A win against Chattanooga, very impressive. Georgia would then be 12-1 with a loss against Alabama, but 12-0 in the regular season. Looking as dominant as ever. Recently crushed Tennessee. In my opinion, the best team in college football right now. I know probably in your opinion as well. But then they would be 12-1 with a Bama loss. Michigan/Ohio State. Whoever wins that game, assume that they go on, win the Big Ten championship game, which it would be insane if they didn't. They would have to lose to Iowa, which would
you
be
could
nice.
have entirely possible. You could have a 12-1 Michigan and a 12-1 Ohio State if the loser loses the Big Ten championship game.
Well, you can't, because whoever loses that game won't play in the Big Ten championship. So they'll only have 12 games.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
you're right.
11-1.
You're right.
11-1, and one of them could be 12-1.
It's not happening.
I think in that
it's not happening.
Both are out. So one has to go.
If you lose to Iowa, you shouldn't be eligible for the playoff. It's just the rules. Okay.
Exactly. Yep, you're done. So one of them goes 13-0, the other goes 11-1. Then you have Oregon playing Washington in the Pac-12 championship game after Oregon beats Oregon State. Washington beats Washington State. Then Oregon beats Washington in the Pac-12 championship game. They're 12-1, and Washington's 12-1. Their one loss is to each other.
Yep.
Right? Washington would have won the regular season. Oregon wins the conference championship game. Louisville, 12-1. They beat Florida State. Florida State 12-1, but Louisville is the ACC champ. So basically, in this scenario, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams at 12 and 7 teams at 12-1, one team at 13-0, and one at 11-1. Who gets in?
All right.
We need to look over resumes. We need to think this through.
So I'm gonna give you mine. I thought about it while we were reading this off, and I actually think it's pretty straightforward. All right. First off, number 1 seed, whoever goes 13-0 between Michigan and Ohio State. Right. 13-0 Big Ten champ. That's your number 1 seed without question. All right. So the next spot is well, how do we go 2, 3, 4? Right. Immediately, I'm going to rule out your 12-1 or your 11-1 team who didn't play for a conference championship. Right. And the reason being is not just that they didn't play for a conference championship. The reason is that Ohio State and Michigan, their schedule's dog shit outside of 2 games. Right. Ohio State at least had the game at Wisconsin and at Notre Dame, but even so, a pretty easy schedule. Not a huge fan.
And you could argue that Michigan Ohio State is already a playoff game.
Yep.
If you lose that game, you just go win that game, and then you get to go on. And lucky you actually get the 1 seed.
So I'm going to say the loser's out of that game.
I agree with that.
So
100%.
I'm gonna go to Louisville, Florida State. Right. I think Florida State is out. You lost in the conference championship game, and the committee is going to look at the fact that you don't have your starting quarterback, that you lost to Louisville, and they're gonna hold that against you. So Florida State's out. So at this point, it's all right, I think I've pretty much eliminated the teams that I know for sure are out. Let's look at the teams that are left, right? You're going to put in the SEC champ. you're going to put in the SEC champ, because if Bama beats Georgia, nobody's going to have a better win on their schedule than Bama over Georgia on a neutral site. They haven't lost in God knows how long, right? That's your 2 seed. That's your 2 seed. Whoever wins the SEC championship,
where it gets crazy,
right? Okay. I then think that you go with the team that has the next best win in the country, and that's going to be Texas winning at Alabama.
It has to be
in week 2. That's Texas, a tough win.
You have a win against the 2 seed. Has to be in. But then that means we have a rematch of Texas Bama if they're 2-3,
which is a hell of a storyline, right? It's a hell of a storyline. Yeah. Neutral site, like, can they do it again? And then your 4th spot is going to be tough, right? You now have a 12-1 Louisville, a 12-1 Washington, a 12-1 Oregon, and a 12-1 Georgia. I think we can eliminate Louisville pretty quickly. It is what it is. I'm sorry, Louisville.
Lost to
Pitt,
which is just not a bowl eligible team. Not a loss. In my opinion, Louisville has to be eliminated.
So then I'm also going to eliminate Washington because Oregon just beat them for the Pac-12 championship, right?
Interesting. And see, this is where I'm like, I don't know.
I would put in, or I would have personally Oregon above Washington. So then this is where I think it gets disgustingly difficult. You have a 12-1 non-conference champ, Georgia. Their loss is to Alabama, who currently has the 2 seed on a neutral site. A very, very respectable loss, a difficult game. It's the SEC championship. I get it. You also have Oregon. Oregon is 12-1. They are a conference champion. And here's why I would give Oregon the nod over Georgia.
Wow.
The reason I would give it to Oregon is because their only loss was against Washington at Washington. They had a chance to redeem themselves, and they did, because they would have to beat Washington in the Pac-12 championship. Because they were able to redeem their only loss, I would give it to Oregon. Georgia's out of the playoff.
So that's interesting because the argument, Texas has, this great win against the 2 seed, so they're in. But with Georgia, their loss is to the 2 seed, so they're out. But Oregon's loss is to a team not in the top 4, but they're
the redemption. It's the redemption.
They did get redemption. And, I mean, to be fair, they easily could have won that game originally against Washington.
Literally a field goal at the end.
Maybe a couple bold calls. It was really, really close. But, again, a loss is a loss. I do think that I would like Oregon's resume more than Georgia's. But I think that there's an argument that Washington's resume is better than both, even if Washington loses to Oregon. So that's where it gets tricky. And then I'm not even locked in putting Texas in there because Oklahoma hasn't looked great lately. They could lose to Oklahoma. Or who does Oklahoma play this week?
Oklahoma plays,
because it's not Bedlam, and it's obviously not Texas. I feel like all their rivalry games are already
done. They're early. TCU.
It's TCU.
Friday night.
So
Friday.
I mean, imagine they lose that game for this hypothetical scenario. Then it's like Texas's loss is to an unranked team.
Yeah.
So it's like, is Texas in?
Well,
and
so
you could kind of view some of this stuff a little
Here's
bit.
My other thing that as I'm thinking this through, right? My assumption is that Oregon or Texas plays Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship, beats them to redeem themselves.
Right, which is possible, but it's also possible that if Oklahoma loses TCU, who's in the Big 12 championship game? Probably Kansas State, right?
So or Oklahoma State, one of the two.
One of the two. Regardless, no redemption there. So it's definitely interesting. You could also skew it a little bit. Look at the scores. Like, what if Oregon beats Washington in the Pac-12 championship game 42-24, and the game is just Oregon won it from the jump, right? Then it's put Oregon in. But if it's 36-33 double overtime, then it's oh, what do you do?
Yep.
What do you do? Same thing with Georgia Bama. What if Bama has a kick 6 the same way that Auburn did it? Like Georgia's like literally about to kick a field goal to win and go 13-0 and extend this winning streak and be like the most dominant dynasty in college football, and they lose on a kick six. Are you going to just tell me they go from 1 to not in at all? I don't
Yep.
know. I
It's
don't know.
crazy.
This is why right now it's the crazy scenario segment at its peak.
Yep.
Because again, we're going to figure some things out, if not this week, next week.
It's a shame that somehow either way some of these teams are going to be left off the board in the next 2 weeks. I would love to see a 12-team playoff with these teams.
It's a shame, but it's a damn great thing that we have a 12-team playoff coming next year, because I'm not even guaranteeing that like we're going to see these awesome matchups in our first 12-team playoff, but just about like deserving to get the chance. It's so nitpicky to be like, all right, Louisville, who's probably going to finish in this scenario, would finish like 8th place. Yep. Like, what makes them so different from the 12-1 team that gets in at 3 and at 4? Yeah, they lost to Pitt. Really bad game. But they went in, they beat, Notre Dame, they beat Florida State, they beat some really good teams. Looked really good. And it's just wild. So yeah, definitely pumped. I honestly, when I wrote this down, I was like, I can't decide. So if I had to just throw something out there, I think I would agree. It would have to be Michigan or Ohio State, 13-0. That would be the 1 seed. Bama at the 2 seed. And then I think I'd go Georgia 3 seed. And, oh, man. I would go, oh, man, Washington 4.
Fuck, you're crazy. You're insane.
Dude, I think their resume is better than Oregon's. Oregon, as of right now, I don't think Oregon has a ranked win.
Oregon's played some of the best ball in the country, though. All right, whatever. I get it.
Yeah, but no ranked wins.
I get it. They'll have two. They'll have a ranked win against Oregon State and a ranked win against Washington.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, that's all good and well, but we got games we got to talk about this week. Our records last week, we both went 7-5. We both missed on a lot of the same games. USC, you fucked us. Lincoln Riley, God damn it. That being said, totals on the year, you are 86-63. I am 96-53, so a 10-game split, right? Before we get into this week's game, though, it's rivalry week. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to draft 1 through 5. We cannot pick the same, but we're going to draft rivalry games, right? So if you take it, you're off the board. If I take it, you know what I mean? It's off the board. No repeats, no duplicates, no nothing. All right? And we're going to start. I'm going to let you get the first pick, Nick, since you are just such a gracious host of the pod. I'm going to give you the first pick.
Yeah. How generous. Are we doing this has to be rivalry week games or just college football rivalries in general?
The best rivalries in college football.
Okay. That helps. Are we allowed, are we doing this blind? I just off the dome?
However you want to do it. However you want to pick them. All right. I have my mental list
I think
of the top.
All right. I'm just going to do it off the dome. I haven't looked at any list, so I might forget some rivalries.
That would be a shame.
Yeah, I know, but I can think of this week, but maybe I'm forgetting something that just, I don't know. But obviously I have to start. If you're going to give me the first pick, I have to take Ohio State.
Wrong.
Michigan.
Bad pick.
I just have. That's
bad
my
pick.
pick.
Bad pick. I'm telling you now, it's a bad pick. You want to know who? First off, great game. Game.
Are we doing state draft?
We're doing. Okay. No, we'll just do every other. Keep it. No. We'll do every other. You're already at a disadvantage because you had a bad first pick.
I am. Oh, yeah,
you had a bad first pick. The true best rivalry. It's America, dude. Army Navy. Army Navy. It's the troops, dude. You're not going to support the troops. That's kind of fucked up. That's kind of fucked up that you didn't.
Am I canceled?
You didn't pick them. I'm just saying.
No.
Best rivalry.
Listen, I get that pick. I think that's a great pick. I think that's as a second pick in this draft makes a lot of sense. But if you ask, like, if both of those games are on, what one are you going to watch?
I'm going to support the troops, dude. I'm an American.
You're going to say this year, if Army Navy was at the same time.
All time. This is all time, dude. This is this season.
I don't care. Go back to, all right, all time. I mean, obviously, yeah, it's a very historic rivalry, but so is Ohio State, Michigan. I think the hatred level, like the true hatred level, might actually be more for Ohio State, Michigan. True hatred. Because Army Navy, we don't want our troops hating
Ohio State, Michigan's too corny. They block out all the M's on Ohio State's campus.
Yeah,
it's corny.
Those are the nerds do that. The real guys, they're beating each other up, socking each other in the stadium. Army Navy, I mean, again, why would you want your Army and your Navy hating each other? That would be terrible for internal relations in your political
just
landscape.
Pick a second rivalry, you stooge. I got you. Pick another game.
No, all right. If I had to choose a second game, this is where it's like I'm not looking at anything, so this is really tough. Oh God. Can I'm just gonna have to take a flyer here because I really like this rivalry. This is going to be a bad pick, though, but I'm going to take Mississippi State.
The Egg Bowl. The Egg Bowl's not a bad pick.
The Egg Bowl.
Those two schools
but maybe a bit
hate
early,
each other.
But they hate each other. That's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm thinking of teams that can actually hate each other, and like fans and whatnot.
Yep. And it's played on Thanksgiving. Again, that's a great pick.
It's great. When you go down to Mississippi, too, all they have are those teams. They don't have an NFL team. They don't have an NBA team. This is it, right? It's the Battle of Mississippi. So
it's almost as good as my pick, which is going to be the Iron Bowl. The Auburn Bama. It's Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game.
100% been my pick.
Idiot. God, I'm dominating you in this draft. It's unbelievable.
No, I won the first pick. That's for sure.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, no, the Iron Bowl's outstanding. Those two schools hate each other, fan bases hate each other. We love a good in-state rivalry, is always great. So yeah, give me the Iron Bowl for my two.
All right, so that's a really good pick. I do not want so many games are coming to mind that I just have a bias towards, which I like. Obviously, I'm not picking Clemson, South Carolina. So I'm going to go, if we're doing just rivalries, I'm going to go Oklahoma, Texas will be my next pick.
I mean, that's a classic. You can't go wrong with that pick. Neutral site game.
Yeah, horns down, neutral site, middle of the season. It's always electric, too. It feels like, it's just... Yeah, I actually feel pretty good about that pick. I feel pretty good about that one.
You should feel pretty good about that. I'm going to go the other Big 12 rivalry. It's Bedlam. I love Bedlam. The Stars in Stillwater at night or the Stars in Norman, Oklahoma at night. Those games have so many points, so many great games in that rivalry. Oklahoma knows football. And I'm a sucker for an in-state rivalry.
Yeah, which is very fair. I'm going to go with the Battle of the Mormons. I'm going to go BYU.
The Holy War.
My fourth pick.
The Holy War.
The Holy War.
There's not much good that's come from conference realignment. The fact that we are going to get the Holy War every year, outstanding.
Yeah, outstanding. And again, I've actually been to Utah's campus. I know some people that have been to both schools. There's a lot of hatred there. There's a lot, every Utah kid I know is BYU students are fucking weird. We hate them. BYU would say the same thing. It feels like a true rivalry in a state that doesn't have an NFL team. So
Yep.
That's also kind of what I'm going for a little.
Yep. I don't hate that at all. I'm going to go with a rivalry that, look, these two teams, they hate each other. They get so unbelievably rowdy when they play. They should play every year. They don't play every year. If I was some sort of college football god commissioner, I would make this game happen every year. And it's the backyard brawl, Pitt, West Virginia. I mean,
I was going to pick that as my
it's just an outstanding rivalry. And in my opinion, it's the best name for a rivalry. The backyard brawl, like, it's outstanding.
Yeah. No, and again, that's a great pick. They hate each other. West Virginia, like, that's West Virginia's favorite game. I know that for sure. I'm assuming it's Pitt's. But obviously, like, Pitt has. There's a lot of teams in Pennsylvania. West Virginia, as a state, kind of just has West Virginia. But yeah, that's one of the loudest games of the year. So I like that pick. Now I have to think, though, because that was my 5 pick. I guess if you went history with your first pick, I'll finish out with one that maybe hasn't been stupendous of late. But USC Notre Dame.
You son of a bitch.
As far as history.
You son of a bitch. Should I go Clemson, South Carolina, just to cuck your team since you just did that to me?
Well, no, that's not a rivalry. So you can take it.
It's not a rivalry?
You can take it if you want. Damn. No, I mean, no.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, you go ahead and take it. I'll just dominate this last round.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna give you that. I'm gonna give you another. First off, I've just been picking rivalries that have fucking awesome names. So when I put this graphic out, it's gonna look so cool because I have Army Navy, which that doesn't need a name obviously because it's the troops, and then the Iron Bowl, Bedlam, the Backyard Brawl. And then, which I'm going to lean on that so hard. Like, the background on my side is going to be the Stars and Stripes, and yours is just going to be fucking, like, plain.
Yeah. Mine's going to be, like, communist.
The fucking hammer and sickle. But no, I have to go with a name that has gotten, like, canceled, which is bullshit, right? It's bullshit. It's the Civil War. Oregon State.
Oh.
They hate each other. The fact that this rivalry, another rivalry that's going to come to an end because of conference realignment. But God damn it, Oregon State in the Civil War is an outstanding rivalry. And it's just peak Pac-12 after dark.
Yeah, it is really a shame they don't call it the Civil War anymore. I kind of forgot it was called that because they changed it back in like 2020.
Yeah.
And, Oregon State has kind of had a resurgence lately. So this slipped my mind. That's a good pick. Literally did not cross my mind. You guys will have to grade this draft when we post the graphic. I feel pretty good about my draft, but if Cody markets himself well enough, I could end up getting dominated. So if this is a bunch of propaganda bullshit, devastating my name, then we'll have to see. So just, keep an open mind is all I ask.
Yep. We will absolutely see. All right. So let's get into rivalry week. The games actually aren't that outstanding. So we're only going to talk about a few. Thursday is Ole Miss at Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. Mississippi State's an 11-point dog. They just fired their coach. I don't see any way Lane Kiffin loses this game.
See, but this is what makes this such a great rivalry, Cody. This is why this was my second pick, because anything can happen in the Egg Bowl. It's played on Thanksgiving. I'm going to take Mississippi State. I think there's something to be said about interim head coaches. They somehow get so much out of their team for no reason. There's just some motivational factor, especially in a rivalry game. You get to play at home. You hate this team. Ole Miss, I think at this point, they know they're not making the college football playoff. They aren't even a lock to make, a New Year's Six Bowl at this point. So maybe you're getting not the most motivated Ole Miss team. I think Mississippi State can do it.
Fair enough.
And it's the craziest pick of the week for me. It happens to be the first one.
Hey, look, rivalry week, anything can happen. Mississippi State's interim head coach, Greg Knox, undefeated as an interim head coach, 2-0. So something to think about.
That's what I'm
Something to
saying.
think about.
That's what I'm saying.
We got games Friday. The Friday slate is pretty solid, not as good as the Saturday slate. Starting off, Iowa at Nebraska. I'm picking Nebraska. You have Iowa. This game's a coin flip. Battle of the Corn. I don't. The under. The under.
Yeah, like 20. It's going to be like 20 and a half by the time it closes. Why isn't this Iowa State? Do we have
they just play that early in the year. The Big 12 plays all of their rivalry games early in the year. Iowa State, Bedlam, the Red River Shootout. That's just kind of the Big 12's.
I thought, just because it was Big 12 versus Big 10. Maybe I'm just tripping. I guess they've just always done that. But Battle of the Corn still, cool name. Definitely not a game I'm gonna get really locked in for. Not super excited.
I'm gonna be honest. I will probably be in the woods with a shotgun at noon on Friday.
I actually think I will probably be doing the same thing. So, respect.
Texas Tech at Texas. I don't see any way that Texas doesn't win this game. Tyler Shaw, however you pronounce his name, quarterback for Texas Tech, has announced that he's going to transfer, and has already entered his name in the transfer portal. It's a done year for Texas Tech. So, Texas is a 13.5 point favorite in that one.
Give me Texas as well.
So, Pac-12 after dark, the Civil War, Friday night, Oregon State at Oregon. Oregon is a 14-point favorite. First off, I don't think they should be a 14-point favorite. I understand that Oregon's playing some of the best ball in the country right now. Again, these two teams hate each other. Autzen Stadium's going to be loud, but Oregon State has been, and I know you're not a DJU guy, but DJU has played really good football. Not great football, but really good football.
Not against Washington. It was nice seeing him look bad against Washington.
Fair.
Because I've been waiting for that all year, and he's just been either mid or pretty good, and I've had to just eat my words and whatnot.
Michael Penix had less than 100 yards in the second half of that game. Like, it wasn't, you know?
I mean, all I know is, like, I looked at it was like DJ was 6 for 15, 80 yards, 2 picks at one point in that game. Obviously, Oregon State kind of turned it around late there, and the weather conditions weren't great, but it helped my conscience. Especially now that I know Oregon State is not going to be, playing meaningful football in the postseason. Yeah. Obviously they could still, be in a fun bowl game, but they're eliminated from the Pac-12 championship game, I think. So I wouldn't at this point now, I wouldn't care if Oregon State won because of chaos, but that 14-point spread means that Oregon is just going to win. You can't not pick Oregon here, so I got to go.
I got Oregon as well. Kentucky at Louisville. I almost got by a fake graphic on Instagram today or Twitter of Mark Stoops being fired at Kentucky.
Oh, really?
But I think it could be possible, but I don't think they should. That being said, Louisville's a 7-point favorite in this game. I would feel a lot different about it if it wasn't at Louisville. I just don't. Louisville's going to win this.
I mean, this is one of those that I think anything could happen. I mean, again, Louisville could have lost to Miami. That game was really back and forth. Yep. It was 31-all. That we didn't touch on that game actually at all this episode, but it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great game.
That 70-yard Louisville touchdown at the end there, to win was sick. So little bit of a destiny vibe from Louisville. They're not going to, be able to pull a TCU, probably. Yep. We don't know that for sure, but it's very unlikely. But still, destiny vibes. So I have to go Louisville.
Yep, I'm going Louisville as well. Texas A&M at LSU. Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, we're both going LSU.
Speaking of, Jaden Daniels had 8 total touchdowns last week and 600 total yards. Holy fucking shit, dude!
And some people still think he doesn't deserve the hype.
Insane. All right, let's get into the big games. It's the biggest game on the slate. It's the biggest game of the weekend. Noon kickoff. Number 2 Ohio State at number 3 Michigan. Michigan is a 4-point favorite. The over/under for this game is 47. I'm leaning the under in what should be a defensive battle. Nick,
yeah, well,
talk me through it. What are your thoughts?
All right, so this is my thing. First of all, I also would lean the under because, again, it seems like Michigan is just going to run the ball, which is wild. We'll have to see. Maybe this is all a decoy, right? I wouldn't put it past Michigan either at this point. Michigan being -4 stands out to me. That's the first thing I see is like, okay, even on a neutral site, that means they think Michigan would be a slight favorite. Obviously, it feels like a toss-up. I think the whole season, I've been saying to myself, I'm going to take Ohio State in this game. I want Ohio State to win this game. You know, I'm tired of Michigan just getting to float their way through a season and then beat Ohio State and then make the playoff and disappoint. I'm tired of it. But I see that you're taking Ohio State, and I'm 10 points behind you in the standings. And a lot of things are telling me that, you know, Vegas thinks Michigan is going to win. So I think I just have to take Michigan for the sake of game picks. I also don't like either of these teams really. Like, I'm not going to be rooting one way or the other. I don't really care who wins. Because like I didn't want to root for Ohio State anyway. It felt wrong. I don't like Ohio State, so I think I'm just gonna go Michigan.
Yep, and we're in a really weird like. I think a lot of people don't want either of these teams to win. That being said, the money is on the under heavy. As far as spread and money line, everybody's just about spread. Everybody's just about 50-50. Money line favors Ohio State, but they're plus money.
That's just because they're plus. Yep. If that's interesting though, because that makes me think we should take the
over. But that being said, I got to go with Ohio State here. I don't. At the end of the day, in this game, I think the playmakers are going to make plays, and I don't know who that is on Michigan's offense. I know who it is on Ohio State's offense, and it's Marvin Harrison Jr. They've been running the ball really well. I also think Ohio State is playing their best football at the right time, right? They absolutely obliterated Minnesota last weekend. I understand it's Minnesota, whatever, but in their last 2 games, they've outscored their opponents 75-6. That's Big Ten competition. Like I get it. I get it, but I think Ohio State's cooking. I think they're playing well at the right time. Like they're really moving with some momentum. So give me the Buckeyes in this one.
I mean, this is one of those games that if you right now you were like, I changed my mind, I'm going to pick Michigan, I would probably just change mine and pick Ohio State. Like I just need to differ because it could go either way. So aggressive.
This is as close to a coin flip as you're going to get. I mean, it truly is.
Yeah, I feel zero confidence about picking either way. That's just how it is.
All right, moving into the Iron Bowl. 8 Alabama is going into Auburn. Auburn's a 14.5-point dog. I'm going to be honest, that line doesn't make sense to me. I think Alabama fucking boat races them.
They should. So yeah, suspicious line. Again, it's like Rivalry
They were supposed to last year though, and they didn't because they had Bryce Young and it was a close game. Harsin was already fired. Like
2 years ago with Bryce Young, the year that Georgia beat Alabama in the national championship game, I think Auburn had a 100% chance of winning, but they ran out of bounds.
That is right. I was thinking of 2 years ago. Last year the game wasn't really close.
Okay, but that's the one where they literally like if they didn't run out of bounds, the game is over. But they ran out of bounds, and then Alabama comes back, ties it, wins in double overtime. Or however many overtimes it was. So, yeah, it never really makes sense. But I'm going to take Alabama to win. As far as betting on it, don't ask me. Don't ask me.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
Fair enough. Washington State at Washington. Washington's a 16-point favorite in this game. Washington State on a Friday night last week obliterated Colorado. That game was ugly. Yeah. It was over before halftime. Colorado ended up putting in their 3rd-string quarterback. That being said, that was Washington State's first win in like 6-7 weeks. Like this isn't a good. They started 4-0. They're not a good team.
Crazy season for Washington
Yeah.
State. Like in my week 4 or week 5 bowl predictions, posts on Instagram, I had them playing in a New Year's Six bowl, and now they're this game away from not making a bowl at all. Doesn't make any sense.
So Washington, we're both picking that. Florida State at Florida. It's a really interesting game. Obviously, the Jordan Travis injury sucks. Florida State's still favored, 6-point favorites. This game is in the Swamp. Graham Mertz is out for Florida, so their starting quarterback is out. I don't know if you remember us talking in the offseason, but Florida's quarterback situation outside of Graham Mertz, not great. That's why they brought him, transferred him in to begin with. I trust that Florida State's going to get it done. I don't know, man. In the Swamp?
I mean, listen, this is the thing with Florida is Graham Mertz was out for some of that game against Missouri. Florida almost won. Regardless, like their backup quarterback actually played decently well. And I mean, that was one of the most underrated games of the week as well. Like Florida probably had a 92% chance of winning that game at one point in the fourth quarter. Like it was all but over. They were playing really well. So if you went, well, I don't know what you want to do. But this feels like another one that I could go either way on.
Yeah. You know what? Now that I say this, I don't know how I feel about Rodemaker. I feel like he's getting a little bit of hype for beating up a bad North Alabama team. Max Brown is going to be the starter for Florida. I'm going to take the Gators in the Swamp. And, maybe I'm wrong. You can call me a Florida State hater all you want. I know typically they reserve that for you, Nick, but
they do, which I own up to it.
I'm going to go with Florida in this one.
But luckily for the Florida State haters, if you're going Florida, this is just a strategy play on my part. I'm going Florida State. Feels good, honestly, to get a 6-point favorite on a strategy play. But I will be rooting for Florida, like just deep down. Like my subconscious is going to be rooting for Florida pretty heavily. Again, grew up a Gator fan and went to Clemson. So Florida State is kind of like easily the team I hate the most in the world. So speaking of Clemson, let's talk about
I'm going to be honest. I don't see a world where Clemson doesn't beat them by like 3 touchdowns. South Carolina's not good. They're not going to make a bowl game. I understand that this is in Williams-Brice Stadium. Doesn't matter. Clemson by 40.
Yeah, so South Carolina starting like 3 freshman offensive linemen. Their offensive line has been devastatingly bad all year. Clemson has a very good pass rush. And when their pass rush can get home, the secondary for Clemson starts to take over. Nate Wiggins last week probably boosted his draft stock to being the number 1 cornerback taken off the board. You have Andrew Makumba. You have Toriano Pride. You have a bunch of names back there in the secondary that I think are going to eat. Especially, we've been talking about this all season, chip on your shoulder games for Clemson. They lost to Notre Dame. They do not want to do that again, especially at home. If they lose to South Carolina twice in a row, especially to this South Carolina team, the state's no longer theirs. And it's like South Carolina has all the leverage in the world to talk as much shit as they want. It can't happen. And I think Clemson knows that. Chip on your shoulder. You lost last year on some BS. Shout out DJU. It's the worst game I've ever seen a quarterback play. So I got to go.
Dabo's feeling himself too right now. You know what I mean? Dabo's feeling himself.
Yeah,
he's in his rhythm.
Baby.
Last game of the slate, North Carolina at NC State. This is a game of 2 teams that have had completely opposite seasons. North Carolina started out unbelievably hot, and then they've lost, 3 out of their last 4-ish. Lost to Georgia Tech, lost to Clemson last week, lost to Virginia. Yeah, brutal. NC State, on the other hand, started out poorly. Started out not great at all. And they've rattled off a handful of wins. They're now 8-3. Like I did not have on my bingo card NC State being one of Notre Dame's best wins, right? But it looks like that's the case. This game is at NC State, and that is the only reason that I'm going with NC State is just because they're playing this game at home. These two teams, again, hate each other. Night game. Should be a good game. I'm watching this game solely for Drake May. I want to see, what kind of fucking grit Drake May has. But, yeah, give me the Wolfpack in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Doran, we could have put in the Props 2 segment because no one would have expected NC State to do this with Brennan Armstrong as their quarterback, barely beating UConn.
Yeah, especially after their quarterback who has done well decided he was going to enter the transfer or redshirt, which means he's going to transfer.
Yeah, and it just a wild year for NC State. But, yeah, they're a win away from 9-3, which would be really, really impressive. But I'm going to go UNC. This one, again, this feels like a strategy play. I mean, you're giving me the team that's favored, and I just need to gain traction on you before bowl season. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
That means that we're differing on 5 games. So that's enough. If I can get 4 or 5 of those, I can be right in the thick of it. And then bowl season is going to be crazy. So we'll move on. This episode's running a bit long.
It's rivalry week. It's the best time of the year.
It is. Yeah, you guys, if you're still here, thank you.
We'll rattle off through the best bets real quick. Obviously, we're back on Iowa's under. We're riding that shit. It's Iowa under season.
Yeah, I'm on it.
All right. So whatever that comes out, it'll probably be like 28.5. But my favorite bets, Toledo minus 12.5. They play Central Michigan. Central Michigan is 2-8 against the spread. They're 1-8 against the spread in the MAC. Toledo is better. They're healthier. So give me Toledo in that matchup. And then a rivalry that we, didn't talk about, but Virginia Tech plays Virginia this weekend in what should be a pretty close game. This game got canceled last year. Virginia, I'm going Virginia Tech. Did it get canceled last year? Yeah, it got canceled last year because of the tragedy with Virginia. But Virginia Tech has won 18 out of the last 20 in this rivalry. They're like minus 140 on the money line, so I'm taking them. They've won 3 of the last. Virginia Tech has won 3 out of their last 5 with wins over Syracuse, Wake Forest, and Boston College. And I know, hey, those games teams aren't exactly like good, but they're winning in conference games, and their losses are to NC State, who's been outstanding, and Louisville, who's been outstanding, and Florida State, who's been outstanding. But they beat the bad teams on their schedule, at least, from October on. So,
do they need to win? They need to win to make a bowl, right? Virginia Tech. I think they're 5-6 right now. I feel decently confident about that, but while you look it up,
yes, they're 5-6, so they do need to win to make a bowl game.
Okay. Well, then I like that bet a lot. I also, will be riding the Iowa under because you have to at this point. It's hilarious. My one best bet, 2-0 last week. I know Texas Tech hit for me. They barely their money line hit. I don't remember my other one. It's erased forever, so we'll never know. But I'm just gonna do one this week, and it's UTSA money line versus Tulane.
Ooh,
Tulane, yeah. UTSA undefeated in conference. A lot of people don't realize that. They started out not great, but they were one of the sleeper teams, to maybe make that New Year's Six Bowl at the beginning of the season. Now they're undefeated in conference. That spread is 3 points in favor of Tulane, and it's in Tulane. So basically they're saying these teams are equal in talent. And so if you're going to give me plus money on UTSA, a team that's clearly very hot, Tulane has kind of been barely scraping by some teams. I'm going to take UTSA.
I don't hate that at all. Jeff Traylor, a name that has been talked about in, those coaching conversations.
Yeah. Oh, if he wins this one, he's gone.
Absolutely. Yeah, all right. Well, that's the show. A little long this week, but hey, it's college. This is Nick. I don't I don't want to say this out loud. This is the last week of regular season college football. This is the last time that we're going to get to see some of your favorite teams play. You know, if your team is not making a bowl game, maybe you're ready for this season to be over. But
yeah, to all the Vanderbilt fans that are listening to this podcast, I'm sorry that this is the last game. You get to actually wait. Did they even they play Tennessee, right?
So
yeah. So and you're probably gonna go out with a loss. Yeah, I mean it makes sense. We had to go a minute 20 or an hour 20 for this episode because next episode, conference championship week, it's gonna be like 40 minutes. So it's not gonna be enough to talk about. It's gonna be sad. But then bowl season gonna be electric. You know, this is why we play for this time of the year.
Abso-fucking-lutely. As always, be a friend, tell a friend, share the podcast. That's the best way to help us out. We appreciate y'all, and we will see you in the next one.